In the last 6 years, I've made over $115 million and worked with over 50,000 plus business owners, helping them make a total of over $1 billion in sales. Now I'm giving away everything I've learned completely free in an easy to follow 23-step course in hopes of helping you start a successful business as well. If you follow every single step, you should easily become rich by this time next year. Starting with step 1, how to start a business. Now the first piece of advice I would have here is start with what you like, and it doesn't have to be an original idea. A lot of people think when they're starting a business, they have to come up with something that's never been done before, but really you can even start a boring business or a more common business. Something that was interesting to me is I actually interviewed people that sold their companies from over $4 million to $4 billion. Some of them were already billionaires. And what was interesting is I thought as I interviewed them that they had sat down or read some book or went on some vacation where they just came up with this crazy idea. In reality, they just saw a problem and solved it. One of them was Justin Hartfield. He really liked smoking weed, so he started Weed Maps. Or I met a guy named Scott Cohen who he saw Invisalign and thought he could do better than them, so he created a competitor called Byte. Or there was no really trading platform for sneakers, and that's how StockX came about. Just look for a problem that you currently see and then think about how you can solve it. For me, I started off growing up playing sports my whole life. So around 12 years old, I started doing Pee Wee football and basketball, and I really excelled at that, and I went on to play Division I football. So when I went into starting my first business, it was really easy for me to just pick fitness and start doing online fitness coaching because that was something that I had done my whole life. Now, was it an original idea? Absolutely not. Is there a lot of other fitness trainers? Of course. But because I was so good at that, and it was what I knew, and I knew how to solve a problem, that was a great business idea for me to start. Now, the second part of this is that we want to create value. Now, if you haven't read the book yet, I think Alex Hormozi explains this better than anyone else, is $100 million offers. And I was actually doing this for years in my companies, but I never knew how to explain it quite the way Alex did. I think Alex breaks it down really well. So the first thing that we want to make sure in this equation is there's 4 components. We have determined outcome times perceived likelihood of achievement divided by time delay, and then effort. So when you're creating an offer, you wanna make sure you have as many of those 4 components as possible. So sticking with fitness, because I had a fitness offer, the determined outcome is great. Lose 20 pounds in 4 months. Most people would say they want that. The perceived likelihood of achievement is very low because most people actually fail trying to lose weight in fitness. The time delay is not great, it takes about 4 months, and then the level of effort is very high that they have to put in. So it's a harder thing to sell because yes, they want the determined outcome, but the rest of it is not very likely they're gonna succeed. And that's why selling fitness coaching is a little bit harder than selling, let's say, liposuction. So if I get liposuction, you'll get the same result. The perceived likelihood of achievement is 100%. The time delay is instantaneous. As soon as you get off the table, you're gonna be, 20, 40 pounds lighter. And then the effort is 0 because they just lay on a table. Now, the reason I brought that up as the example is not to get you frustrated. It's just to illustrate the point. In fitness, I can't promise them they're gonna lose 20 pounds in a day, or I can't promise that I'm gonna work out for them. That doesn't work. But it's just to illustrate the point that if you wanna make as easy to sell as possible, that those are the 4 components that you wanna focus on in terms of doing that. If you haven't read that book, I highly recommend you read it. It's about 150-ish pages and it goes all into that concept. The next thing is then execution. What is the first thing you have to do to make your business come to life? Now, most people think they have to build the business first or they have to create the entire curriculum. First thing I did when I started selling online fitness coaching is I started reaching out to my followers on Instagram. I booked them on sales calls and I started selling it. And once I made my first initial sales, I actually had nothing ready. I had no PDFs, no documents, no meal plans. So I said, look, I'm gonna take 72 hours and I'm gonna deliver your meal plan and your guide. By the way, in the meantime, I'm working on developing an app because I was using Trainerize at the time, but I'm just gonna send you Excel sheets to start if that's okay, and then I'll migrate you over to that when it's ready. And they were totally fine with that. So I actually came up with their meal plan based on the foods they liked and didn't like, and I came up with their workout program, and I just put it on an Excel sheet, and I transferred them over a few weeks later. The reason I did that is a lot of people spend tons of time creating their product or creating their business before they've ever sold it. And if you just sell it first, the benefit is that if you can't sell it, you know you have a sales issue, and then you can focus on that. If you do sell it, then you can create it after. But you'll see a lot of people who spend years and years and years and money and money and money on building something, and then they're never able to actually sell it, and it completely ruins their life. When I think of Shark Tank, most of the businesses that go on there have mortgaged their homes, they've taken out loans, they've taken on debt, and it wasn't a very successful business. So if you can go out and sell it first, that will also give you proof of concept and confidence that your business actually will work. The next thing to look at is to consider where the revenue is going to come from. So is this going to come from your organic content and just by trying to be more of a content creator? Is it going to come from paid ads? Is it going to come from IG shoutouts? Is it going to come from your YouTube channel? You need to make sure that you have at least one stream of lead flow coming in so that you have consistent leads that you can close into deals. The last thing is you want to make sure your purpose is strong. I'm not going to lie to you and say that I was super obsessed with fitness when I started and helping people get in shape, but I was obsessed with improving my life and helping my family and being financially in a better place. And that helped me push through the tough times because I knew that the only way I was going to make the type of money I wanted to make was to have a strong purpose around why I was doing it. And for me, my purpose was to prove to myself that I was worth something, to help my family, to become someone. I didn't want to go through my life and just do what most people do. I've always wanted to do more. So make sure that you have a very strong purpose tied back to why you're starting the business, so when things get tough, you can push through. The next step is then how to win at business. One of the key things I think that will make you very successful is having delayed gratification, where you don't have to win instantly, where you can just over-deliver and provide a lot of value and be patient. So when you start, over-deliver and be patient. You know, if you can't get clients right away, give stuff away for free. Really over-deliver to the client. Make sure it's a great experience. Make sure you have good word of mouth. Learn the skills. Be patient. That is very undervalued in winning at business. And every time you can do that, you'll beat other people because it's not who can win the fastest, it's who can go the longest. Business is a marathon. And so you don't have to be the fastest, you don't have to be the most aggressive. It's just whoever can stay in the game the longest, usually over a longer time horizon, is gonna win more because they're willing to deal with more failure, setbacks, anything like that. The next thing is then have culture that is client-centric. Something that I made a huge mistake on early in my career is I did not focus on the clients. I was so focused on sales and just pushing people through as fast as I could that I think I forgot the people who are paying the bills, they're the ones who need great results. They're the ones who are hoping that you're going to make a big change in their life. You wanna make sure that your team is focused on creating a great client experience. And then finally, the last one is a little bit of luck. Now, when I say luck, I don't believe in just luck per chance. What I believe is that as you work hard, luck seems to come to you. I worked really hard at being the best athlete I could and getting a 4.0. And because of that, I had a mentor who was willing to teach me business. As I worked hard in building the business, I came to different opportunities with masterminds and I got referred to coaches that helped me generate millions of dollars. I was lucky by working hard and being persistent. I don't just believe in luck that things are gonna fall into your lap, but if you work hard, opportunities come your way that will help you win in business. This key thing that you would want to learn is how to lose in business. Now, I know that sounds counterintuitive, but if you can get comfortable with losing and failure, you're gonna win more over the long haul. You don't want anything to own you. When bad things happened early in my career, it would really affect me mentally. I would get really down, I get really depressed, I get really angry. Don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect, but now I can have bad things happen that just don't really bother me. For example, this year, I had someone hack my Facebook ads account and spend over $100,000 that we weren't able to recover. And I went through Amex and I tried to dispute it and we weren't able to do it. I've had my Facebook account deactivated before. I've had my Instagram account deactivated before. I've had clients who, have threatened to sue me. It's just part of success. As you have more success, bad things can and will happen. But if you don't let those things own you or define you, they don't bother you as much. And instead of them being this big hurdle to overcome, you just chalk it up as the cost of doing business. The next step to this is letting go of your ego. And there's a great book on this that I love called Ego is the Enemy. And it goes into detail how a lot of the bad things that happen in our life is simply because we're trying to protect our ego. If you have an ego, you're not okay failing. You're not okay making mistakes. You don't have a growth mindset. One of the things I think that has really helped me in business is I don't care if I'm right. I don't care if someone else knows more than me. I don't feel bad about asking questions. I don't care if someone looks at me as I'm dumb. I'm always very curious and I always ask a lot of questions so that I can grow, so that I can develop, so that I can learn more things. You can't win in business by trying to avoid failure. The more you fail, you'll actually win quicker. So meaning that if there were 10 doors, you don't know which door to go through, and you go up to door 1 and it's wrong, and door 2 and door 3 and door 4, you're gonna get to success faster versus the person who looks at all the doors and is scared to take any step at all. You're gonna fail in business, it's inevitable, it's going to happen. And so if you can let go of your ego and not attach your ego to failure and thinking that you're dumb or stupid or not smart by failing, you're gonna go a lot further in business if you can learn to fail, because you have to fail to win. The next one is taking your time. It's not who runs the fastest, it's who runs the furthest. When I started my business 6 years ago, there were a lot of competitors in the industry. Fast forward 6 years, almost all the competitors I've had have gone out of business or switched to something else. And it goes to show that it's not who runs the fastest, it's who runs the furthest. It's like the tortoise and the hare. If you can just stay in the game, it's hard to lose, because as long as you stay in the game, you're not losing. A lot of people, they'll sprint in and then they come up against roadblocks, and instead of pushing through, they quit and they move on to something else. Take your time, go slow, be patient. It's not always about going as fast as humanly possible. It's more about just staying in the game. And yes, like I do think you need to have some urgency, and you should try to go as fast as you can, but at the same time, as long as you stay in the game, you'll win. So if someone stays in business for 20 years versus someone who stays in business for 6, obviously the person who's at 20 years is gonna be further and farther along and have more success than the person who quit at 6. The next step is how to get leads. And there's 4 ways to get leads. The first step being content. Now, my opinion on content is it's very hit or miss. So when I was building my business, I never wanted to do a ton of content, because if I spent a ton of time on content and posted it and I didn't get a lot of views or I didn't get a lot of reach, I felt I could have done something else for those 2 or 3 hours that would have produced more sales than just doing content. I feel content is for the more experienced business owners. So for example, if you see me posting YouTube videos now, I don't feel I have the strongest presence yet, but because I have 12 editors, I have a video manager, and I have a content manager, it's easier for me to do content now because they will help me come up with the ideas and the creation, and then I just have to sit down and shoot. And then that's the end of my involvement in the content. I think most people are trying to be content creators and not business owners. It's a lot easier to build a business and then go back and be a content creator than it is to be a content creator and then build a business. A good example of someone that I look at is Alex Hormozi. Alex Hormozi built a big business. He sold it for 46.2 million, and then he became a content creator. People who are content creators, a lot of times, I don't see they have a lot of business acumen, and they actually struggle more with it. So my advice would be, yes, you can post content, but usually post content around objections that you get on sales calls or prospects that don't want to buy your service. Don't post content with the idea of going viral. I think it's better to post content around objections and issues that prospects may have with buying your service. And then later, after you've built a business and have made money and you can build a team, then you can put more time into it like I am. If you look at my YouTube channel, for example, I've posted about 1,500 videos with only 24,000 subs. That's not a great ROI, but I'm willing to do it now because I have a big team. But in the beginning of your business, if you were posting YouTube videos and you're only getting a couple thousand views per video, you're probably gonna quit because you're not making any money, you're spending a lot of time and energy, and you're not getting a lot out of it. In the beginning of a business, you have to make sales very quickly. And so I would only post a minimum amount of content that you need, and it should be around objections that your prospects have. Wait to become a content creator or post viral clips later down the road, because it takes a lot more effort and energy to post high-level content than you probably think. The second way to get leads is organic outreach. Now, there's 2 ways we can do this. It can either be followers who are following us on our social media, or it could be cold outreach. Now, this is how I built my business to over $50,000 a month, just by sheer will, just by being aggressive. I started off by hitting my followers who are on my Instagram page. And on average, what would happen is I'd send 100 DMs. I do about 20 an hour not to get a spam block. I'd get 30% of those people who would respond. Then I'd book, let's say, 5 calls, and I'd close 1 or 2. And then I would take that cash and move it into ads. And we'll get into that in just a second. If it was cold outreach would be a complete stranger. I would go on Instagram. I would type in a hashtag around the service I was selling. So at the time, it was fitness coaching. So I would type in fit mom, fit dad, fit spo, fitness motivation, whatever. And then I would scroll until I found someone out of shape and overweight. I go to their profile, make a compliment, work through that, and then book a sales call. The difference with cold outreach is it's a lot lower response rate, maybe 10 to 20%. So I'd send out 100 DMs, 10 to 20 would respond, book 3 calls maybe, close 1. The reason I tell you guys these metrics is that if you're not hitting these metrics, you know you have a messaging issue, or you know you have a sales issue. Something that always got me frustrated when I was building my business is I didn't know what the numbers should be. I would hire coaches, and I didn't know, hey, am I doing this wrong? Am I doing it right? What should the numbers be? If you know what numbers should be in your business, or what the KPIs should be, it's very easy to scale and grow. So that will be organic outreach, and those are the numbers you're looking for. The third way to get leads is referrals. The best way I found to get referrals is bring your clients in, get them amazing results, and the second they get amazing results, just simply ask them, hey, Is there anyone else you know that we could help that needs help with the types of things you're getting help with? That's the best way to get referrals. If you do a good service and your clients are getting a lot of results, this is one of the easiest ways to scale a business, and it's the cheapest way to scale a business as well, because you don't have to pay to acquire the customer. So you can get referrals that way. And then the final thing is paid ads. And there's essentially 3 different ways you can do paid ads. The first one would be shout outs. A shout out would be where you go on Instagram, for example. It could be Facebook as well, but Instagram's more commonly known for this. And you go to a big page and you ask them to tag you, and in return, you pay them a set fee and then they send traffic to you. So hypothetically, let's say I went to Kim Kardashian, right? And I said, hey, Kim, I'll pay you $1 million and then you're gonna post about me. She said, hey, follow at Tanner.Chidester for tips and tricks on business. And she pushes a ton of traffic to me. What happens then is I can outreach to all those individuals to try to schedule sales calls and sell my services. That's a great way to do it. Second way is then boosted posts. Boosted posts is just how it sounds. If you go on your Instagram profile or Facebook and you go down the bottom right-hand corner, it'll say boost post. What that does is it then sends that post to different people on Instagram or Facebook, whoever you target. And you just choose the age range, the type of interest they want, and how much you want to spend. The numbers and KPIs for that, if you do it, is we want 10 to 20 cents per profile view, $1 to $2 per follower, and then let's say we spend $1,000 and it was $2 per follower, $1,000, 500 followers, you get a 30% response rate, so 150 people respond. You want a 10% application rate, so let's say you book 15 sales calls, and then from that, you would close 3 to 5 sales. If you can pull that off, you can make a lot of money. And again, I give you guys the metrics, so if you go implement these strategies, you know what you're looking for. Going back to shout outs, if you do want to run shout outs, usually it's going to be about the same. You want, let's say you got 10,000 followers or 5,000 followers. And again, you're going to have around those same metrics on response rate, booking calls, etc. This is a great way to get your feet wet. And these are the cheaper ways to run paid ads, okay? The downside is sometimes the quality won't be as good, but it's definitely cheaper, so this is great for beginners. The last way we can get leads through regular ads. When I say regular ads, it would be one of the sponsored posts you'd see on Facebook or Instagram. Someone clicks it, and then once they click it, they'll either go into a direct message or they'll go to a page, a landing page, or I call it straight to page. If I was running ads, the metrics you're usually looking for, if it's a B2C offer, it'd be $1,000, $10 lead. Let's say you had 100 leads. Out of 100 leads, you get 10 close 1. If it's a B2B offer, it's usually double the cost. You might need to spend a little bit more money to close a B2B lead. Those are all the ways to get leads. Doesn't matter which way you do or a combination, but you want to find a way that's very consistent. So for me, the way I grew my businesses is I didn't have a big organic following. I didn't have a big YouTube. I didn't have a big Facebook or Instagram. I focused predominantly on boosted posts, shout outs, and regular ads because I knew if I put in $1,000, I get X amount of leads and I make X amount of sales. It was very predictable for me. It's how I grew my business consistently, and I was able to scale it to millions of dollars in revenue. Now, one of the most important things you can do in your business is to have a purpose. So step one of that is simply just think about it. What is it that gets you excited, makes you happy, gets you up in the morning? When I started off with my fitness company, I actually wasn't that excited about it, only because I've been doing fitness for so long and I felt it was actually really easy to get in shape. Like, it just wasn't a hard thing for me. But as I started making money and I had personal trainers and different business owners ask me for help on how to build their companies, I actually realized I had a deep purpose, and I loved helping people make money because money is one of the things you can do that will really dramatically change your life. And I'm not saying money will make you just magically happy, but when people have issues, a lot of times it's a lack of money. You know, they can't go on a vacation, they don't have money for it. They can't travel, they don't have money for it. Their health is going down, they can't afford healthcare. And so I got a lot of purpose around that. Another thing you can think about is what problem matters to you. So for me, yes, I liked helping people get in shape, but I noticed that when I helped people make 10K or 20K or 100K, it seemed to change their life a lot more because now they had options. Now, if they had a mental issue, they could get a therapist, or if they had a medical issue, they could pay for it, or if they wanted to help their parents, you know, retire early, they could do it. That to me seemed to be a lot more beneficial than just helping someone lose 20 pounds, for example. And then finally, matching what you do in your day to your actual purpose. So to me, I wanted to focus on the things that I enjoyed the most that related to my purpose. Life is long, and if you wake up every day doing stuff that you don't have a deep reason behind what you're doing, it can be difficult. Now, I'm not saying when you're in business that it should just always be rainbows and fairies and it should always be fun, but it's a lot easier to continue to do stuff that you enjoy if it's revolved around your actual purpose. Now, sales is a very important part of business that you need to have down if you want to be successful in it. But what's even more important is clients. client fulfillment. And step one in having great client fulfillment is a second after a sale is done. So something that I've done with every single client that has ever come in my programs is I'll send them a personalized video. So I actually will take my cell phone and my sales rep will send me the person who just signed up, and I will send them usually a 30-second personalized introduction where it's just like, hey John, super excited you're in the program. Can't wait for you to come in. Here's a couple, tips of guidance and stuff like that. Thank you so much for your business. Have a great day. And that goes a really long way because they know I took time out of my busy schedule to send them a personalized video. The second step to really good client fulfillment is the second they close on the call, book an immediate onboarding call immediately. Your new client will make their minds up about you usually within the first 24 to 72 hours. So if you have a poor onboarding process and it's not very streamlined, you're gonna get judged. That's where you're gonna get buyers or more. So if you can send a personalized video and then immediately book an onboarding call, that's gonna go a long way. Step 3 of that is then send a handwritten letter. We've sent out expensive gifts to our clients. We sent out boxes, resources, and stuff like that. But I think ultimately, the thing that went the farthest is where I would just sit down and do a handwritten letter. And it doesn't have to be a long letter. It would just be similar to what I said in the personalized video. And those go a really far way because not only do most people not do it, but again, it shows that it took time out of my day to make them feel special as a client. And then fourth and finally is a client intake form. What's great about a client intake form that I notice is when I would bring clients on, especially because we're doing business consulting, every client has a little bit of a different strategy because their business is in different places. So when I implemented a client intake form, we have about 30 questions on it. I was able to see that intake form and then based on what they filled out, be able to tell my account managers exactly the strategy that client needed. So it saved us a lot of time and a lot of energy. Before, when there was no client intake form, it would put a lot of pressure on the account manager to give the client the perfect strategy. And keep in mind, if they gave them the wrong strategy, obviously the client wouldn't get results. And then they get upset, they ask for a refund, they charge back. And so having a client intake form that they fill out the second they sign up is super, super, super beneficial because then you make sure that you and the account managers are all on the same page to make sure that the strategy they implement is the correct strategy. Now, building a business is hard enough, but if you don't have an unstoppable mindset, I don't think you're gonna make it to the end of the finish line. So something that I always tell myself is I expect things not to work. Expectations is actually what causes people to quit. There's actually a quote by Warren Buffett that I like, and he says, one of the easiest ways to be happy is to have low expectations. When we get upset or depressed, it's because what we hoped would happen didn't, and there's a gap between that and reality, and so we get a little let down or we feel bad about it. If you go into business and you expect to work really hard, but you have very low expectations for what you'll get in return, you're gonna feel pretty good. You're gonna feel very happy. I always will go in with the mindset that, hey, this may not go as well as I want, or it's not gonna work as well as I want, and that makes it a lot easier for me to continue to push forward because my expectations are low. If my expectations get out of whack, that's actually where I have a lot of disgust or heartache or why am I doing this? I've been working so hard. And so if you avoid that by lowering your expectations, expect to work twice as hard, but get twice as little results. And that is what's gonna keep you in the game. The second step to that is understanding it's gonna be 10 times harder than you think, and it probably will happen 2 times faster than you expect. So going back, I don't think I would have started a business if I knew how difficult it would be. I think I thought starting a business would be a lot easier. The cool part though is it was about 10 times harder than I thought, but it happened 2 times faster than I expected. Meaning in my first 2 years of business, I made $2 grand. But if you had told me, hey, it's gonna take you 3 years to make $1 million, I wouldn't have really cared. But because I didn't make any money in the first 2 years of business, I don't think I expected to make $1 million in my 3rd year. So it was a lot harder than I thought, but it happened a lot faster than I imagined. And I think that's the case for most people. You can go into business and it's gonna usually be much harder than you think, but if you stick with it and you put in that consistent effort on a daily basis, I usually find that the results you get happen a lot faster than you thought was going to happen. The next piece of this is having a growth mindset. And there's 2 books I'd really recommend. First book is actually called Mindset. Right? Pretty crazy. And in the book, it talks about having a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. Fixed mindset is people who don't want to be wrong or seen as failures. So they're afraid to go and try new things or challenging things because they don't want to be looked as a loser essentially, or that they're failing. A growth mindset is people who are willing to push the boundaries and fail because they see the value in doing that. They see the value in growth. The second book I would recommend you read is Ego is the Enemy. And a lot of times we're not willing to push boundaries because we have an ego, and it hurts our ego when we're looked at as dumb or people judging us, so on and so forth. Having a growth mindset is super important because you look at failure as a good thing instead of a negative thing. And then finally, I would recommend you burn all the boats. The reason I didn't make any money in my first 2 years of business looking back is in my mind, I technically had a plan B. I said, hey, if this doesn't work, I'll go back to school. It's fine. I'll do my best, but I wasn't really doing my best. When I finally burned the boats and I only had a plan A to make my business work and I didn't have a plan B, that's when I actually made my first $1 million. You can always go back to the thing you hate. You can always go back to the life you don't like. So if you want something new, you have to be willing to burn the boats and go all in and make it happen. And I really do think that having an unstoppable mindset is deciding that this is going to work, I'm going to make it work, and you do whatever it takes, versus most people go into a scenario and they say, yeah, I'll try, but if it doesn't work, it's fine. I'll just go back to the next thing. I don't think that's a good mindset to have. If you want things to work, you have to burn the boats and go 100% all in. Now, once we've created an unstoppable mindset, we want to make sure that we learn how to focus. So one of the key things I will do is whenever I'm not focusing, what I notice is that I will get notifications on my phone. I'm getting a lot of text messages. My team's pinging me in Slack. I'm getting stuff on WhatsApp. And so what I'll do is I'll actually take my phone like this, I'll turn it off and I'll put it in another room and I'll put it face down. Yes, you need social media to build your business. That's really the only reason I have social media. I don't think I'd have social media if I wasn't building a business, but you need to use it to post. You don't need it to consume. The people who are the most successful use social media to post. They use it to attract their clients, but you want to have the opposite behavior if you're a business owner. You don't want to consume content. You want to use content to attract your types of clients. So when you work, take your phone, put it in another room so you're completely isolated and not distracted, so you can focus on building your business. Something else that I do that's been very successful for me is I'll block out my day with a time schedule and calendar. So if I go on Gmail, I have it in front of me right now, you can see my entire schedule based on my schedule. So I'll just pull up today, for example. If you look at my schedule, I got up today, I had a team meeting at 9:45. Usually I'll work out before that. Then I had coaches meeting. Then I had a meeting with my media buyers. Then I had a client. Now I'm shooting YouTube right now. Right after this, I have a call with my portfolio company. I have 2 more coaching calls. Then I have a quick break and I have 2 webinars tonight. So my entire day is blocked off. So I'm as efficient as humanly possible so I can move as many things into my schedule to move the business forward. A lot of people are very inefficient. And the reason that matters is it takes them 2 months to do something that I can do in a week. And because it takes them so long, in 6 years, in 10 years, in 15 years, my business is 3, 5, 10 times further ahead than theirs. Not because really that I'm working harder, but that I'm just much more efficient. So a key thing is to block out your day with a time schedule and calendar and make sure everything is blocked in that you need to do so you're not wasting any time wondering or thinking about what you're gonna do. If you're not sure how to do that, do it the night before. Take a piece of paper and a pen, write your schedule down, and then block it off on your calendar so that you can be as efficient as humanly possible. The next step is then move somewhere with no distractions. I live in Miami, but it's not been a big deal for me because I'm very good at focusing. But if you're trying to build a business and you're distracted and you live in a big city, go home to your parents' house or move to Montana or Wyoming or Bali or Idaho or somewhere where the only thing for you to do is to work. Don't live in a city if you get distracted easily. Move to a suburb, move to a different country, and simply just focus on work. What I did is when I was building my business, I was paying $3,000 a month of rent, and I didn't want to do that because I thought it was a waste of money. So I moved home to my parents' house, who lives in a suburb in Houston. There's really nothing to do there except work, and I just stayed in that room until I started making money. You want to limit and remove all distractions and keep your living expenses as low as possible, so the only thing for you to focus on is building your business. And then finally, for anyone who's watching this who's under 30 years old, my piece of advice is no girls, right? There's just no reason as a man that you should be distracted with women in your 20s, and there's 2 reasons why. Number one is most women are attracted to men who have resources, okay? If you're in your 20s, you don't have any resources. You have no money, you have no wealth, you have no status. You need to build yourself up. And number two is once you've actually become someone that you're proud of, you'll have an easier time attracting women, not only because of what you have, but because you actually have confidence in who you are. I was so glad that in my 20s, I was so focused on business and building myself up that I didn't spend a lot of time dating. And now that I'm in my 30s, it's very, very easy. And I now have a life that I'm proud of that I could share with someone. Don't date girls if you're under 30. You could definitely have a fling and maybe invite a girl over or whatever. But if you're going all out and trying to build a full-on relationship, I usually would stray away from that unless you met that girl early on in your life. Focus on your business, build yourself up, turn yourself into someone you're proud of, and then later you can focus on women. But I think a big mistake is a lot of 20-year-olds go out and mess around and then they get to their 30s and they haven't really built a life they're proud of, and now they have to to basically focus in their 30s versus if they just focus first in their 20s. Now, while you're building your business, you want to make sure that you still balance your personal life and relationships, or those are going to go completely to shit. Now, with a caveat, when I started my business, I went 100% in on my business and pushed everything else to the side, but I was 22 years old. I didn't really have a close friends group at that time. We'd all gone our separate ways. I just finished playing collegiate football. My girlfriend broke up with me because she didn't like that I started a business. So I didn't really have anyone to spend time with, and I didn't want to because I didn't feel like I had anything to offer. So I was fully focused on making a better version of myself. Now, once I got out of that phase, it was about 27 years old, because at that point I'd made millions and millions of dollars. What I realized is that I had to treat my personal life just like my business, because I got so used to being very efficient and scheduling things that if I didn't schedule things, they wouldn't happen. And so keep this in mind as well. Relationships are not efficient, okay? It's hard to have super efficient, relationships per se, where you don't waste any time and, you just get right to doing whatever activity you set. But I will find that scheduling it is important. So as my business grew, what I started doing is I would get up around 5 o'clock, 4:30 in the morning, go to the gym at 5. I'd work out for about 2.5 hours. I know it's excessive, but I just like to come back. I'd start working about 8 to 6:30, and then I'd spend 6:30 to 8:30 either hanging with friends, talking to my family, reading books, hanging out with my girlfriend, whatever. And then on the weekends, I might spend a little bit more. But during Monday through Friday, especially when I'm trying to grow and build my businesses, 2 hours is my max that I'm going to spend. Now for you might think that's not enough and you might want to do more. But the key thing is to schedule it. And then the second thing is then decide what's most important and what you will sacrifice. So, for me, I don't really want to sacrifice most things for my goals. I will sacrifice it with my, romantic individual, my girlfriend or whoever I'm with. But outside of that, I really don't want to sacrifice much for my goals, because at the end of the day, that's what gives me fulfillment and that's what makes me feel good about myself. If I start sacrificing my goals for other people, it creates a lot of resentment. And so whatever you want to sacrifice is up to you. But remember, usually if you don't sacrifice for your goals become the sacrifice. And so whatever you want to do is fine, but that would be my advice for you. Now, another thing you can do to try to help grow your business is learn how to leverage AI in system. With ChatGPT, that's on the rise right now. There's more softwares coming out. A key thing you want to do is just take repetitive tasks and make them automatic. So examples you could do is your ad metric sheet. If you run Facebook ads or Instagram ads, you could have an ad sheet that automatically updates for you. Or you might have something that filters your emails automatically so you know which ones are most important. Or you could have some type of calendar scheduler that shows which tasks or which things should be in which order. There's a million things out there. Or honestly, you could just have something as simple as a VA. But if you want to use AI in systems, a key thing I would try to do is take the very mundane, boring, repetitive tasks and try to move that over to AI or a VA or someone on your team who can handle it. Another thing that really helped me scale my business was learning how to do something once and then never having to do it again. So examples would be setting up an email automation, 10 email sequence. You write the emails once, you set it up, you never really have to mess with it again, maybe once a year when you want to update your emails. Or text messages, same thing. I'd set up a text message flow, never have to do it again. A funnel, you set it up once, you very minor changes. So there's a lot of things as well that if you learn how to use and systematize certain softwares, you set it up once and then you really never have to deal with it again, which is a great use of your time. I will meet a lot of business owners who never learn these skills and they're always at the mercy of an agency or someone else, but because they don't know what's going on, I've seen a lot of people have very bad experiences in their business or lose a lot of money. So a big thing that you want to focus on is make sure that you learn these skills, because even if you have to do it one time, like setting up a website or setting up a Facebook pixel or setting up a funnel or emails or text, it's a one and done thing, and then you have that skill forever and you really never have to do it again, and you won't be taken advantage of by other people who will say, oh, you have to do this or you have to do that. And I've seen it happen a lot of times with business owners. I just hate seeing people taken advantage of because they're ignorant. And the last thing I would recommend is have everything in one place. So before we moved over to elite360.io, that's our software. It's a white label version of Go High Level. We have a great customer service, by the way. So if you guys want to join, it's elite360.io. But we had ClickFunnels and we had Simply Text for text messages, and we had Active Campaign for emails, and we had Phone Burner for dialing, and we had so many systems. So we were spending probably $3,000 to $4,000 a month on software. Now when you're making close to $2 million a month, that's not that big of a deal, but it still adds up. And it wasn't really the pricing, it was more the complexity, like having to know multiple systems and use them across the board. Eventually when Go High Level came out, which was a great idea, by the way, and they moved everything into one place, it was really easy because now we do all our texting and calling and dialing and CRM and contact information is all in one place. It makes it really, really, really easy to run the business. So having everything in one place just makes it much easier to grow and build a business. So I would highly recommend, instead of learning multiple softwares, find one software that does it all and focus on that. Most people at this point are either using Elite360 360.io, which is ours, or Go High Level, right? The difference, by the way, for anyone that's thinking, what's the difference between a white label version? A white label version is using Go High Level software, but putting your own personal content and customer support. And because we've helped over 50,000 business owners, that's why I think ours is better. Now, a part of business you need to do, but I don't think is the most important thing, is content. Now, you have two different types of people. You either have a person who is a content creator or you have a business owner. 99% of people are better off learning how to be a business owner because content creators usually don't know shit about business. Trust me. Go talk to one, ask them business questions, how they use systems or hire and train, they won't be able to answer. Yes, there is benefit in having a lot of traffic, but there's no benefit in having traffic if you don't know how to convert it into sales. A lot of the aspiring entrepreneurs I've looked at learned how to build businesses, Gary Vee, Tom Bilyeu, Alex Hormozi, etc. And then they built content after. And a key thing that most of them have told me when I've had private conversations is it was easier to build content once they had some credibility. And the credibility came from selling their companies, by the way. So coming back to this is, if you want to learn how to do content, here would be my advice to you. I've paid, over $3 million over the last 6 years on coaching courses and agencies. Now, 80% is usually shit. Just so you know, 20% will be good. But the caveat I would give you is do this. If you want to learn YouTube, do not hire someone who has a YouTube course, hire an experienced YouTuber. If you want to learn Instagram, don't hire someone who has an Instagram course, hire someone who has a great Instagram, so on and so forth. So the thing that I learned was I would hire people who sold courses on these things. But the thing is when you hire them, you're not working with them, you're working with their team, right? Which makes sense because they have to build a business and scale. I have nothing wrong with it. It's just you're not getting them. So instead, if you go to someone who has a big YouTube channel and they don't actually teach this, you can reach out to them. You're gonna have to pay premium, but say, look, I'll pay you a lot, teach me how to do this. And you're gonna get the best of the best and their attention one-to-one to really actually learn how to do content. Now, with that being said, I'm not trying to say I have the best content ever. You guys can look at my content for the amount of effort and volume I put in. I honestly think I should have better numbers, but I don't, which means it's not good enough yet. But I am trying, and maybe that's just a skill that I don't have as good as the other skills like marketing and sales and things I teach about. But that's exactly how I would hire. The next part is that understanding that the idea matters more than anything else, and then the hook. Every single person I've hired, they spend an enormous amount of time on the actual idea. So the actual video or the actual reel, and then the hook to be in the first 3 seconds. Everything else is second or third to that. If the idea sucks, nothing else is gonna work. If the idea is good and then the hook sucks, usually it won't hit. So what you really wanna look for is it a good idea, right? Just like an offer in a business. A business will work better even if it has poor execution if it's a better offer, right? It's a better business. Same thing with content. If it's a better idea, it will perform better even if it has an inferior hook versus a piece of content that's not as good of an idea with a better hook. So you always want to focus on the idea. An easy thing to learn from this, by the way, is I've paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to be told this, but pretty much what most content creators do is they look for converting content similar to their avatar or competitors, right? So they find content that is similar to what they put out, and then they make variations of that. Like that will save you tens of thousands of dollars because I would pay people over and over again. And usually that's what they're doing. So when it doesn't perform, I don't know what to say. That's something I would not say I'm the most expert at. I'm very good at building businesses. I'm not as good at the content part, but that is what they teach. And so if you can learn how to find content and reiterate that, that is going to save you, tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands of dollars, because that's what most of them are doing. There's 2 ways to attack content. You have preparation and then you have shooting the content. Now what most people do, and I did this for a long time, is I would just get the idea and then immediately shoot it, right? And then what would happen is it wasn't really thought out, there wasn't bullet pointed, it wasn't scripted, and it was just like, all right, here's the idea and go ahead and start talking. Those very rarely perform well because you haven't put any time or preparation into it. Just like you wouldn't start running a sales funnel without building it out first. The best content creators that I've met and seen, they spend a lot of time in the actual preparation. For example, instead of doing no prep and just getting an idea and then they shoot for 4 hours, instead they'll spend 4 hours and shoot for 30 minutes. The prep is where the best content I've seen actually performs. So when I go back to the drawing board, or even if I hire people and they try to help me, they talk about scripting, they talk about ideas, they talk about hooks. They're not talking about the actual execution. The execution like this right now is the easiest part. If you guys could see my computer screen, I actually have 18 bullet points on here. So this isn't scripted word for word, but I know exactly what I'm gonna say because I've bullet pointed it out. So when I get on the video with you and you're watching, I have everything I need. And then finally, just be consistent. Something I'm very proud of about myself, and I know you will be too if you do this, is I've posted 1,500 YouTube videos and I have 24,000 subscribers. Now, part of that makes me depressed because that's about 10 people per video. But the other part is look at the consistency. Eventually I will hit 100,000 subscribers and eventually I will hit 1,000,000 subscribers because life is long. And if I keep doing this for the next 25 to 50 years, there's no way that it won't happen, right? That's gotta be my mindset. I've only really taken YouTube seriously for the last like 6 months anyways, right? Like I've posted throughout the years, but it's never been as serious as I'm taking it now. So consistency is part of winning. It's not about how fast you move, it's how long you're willing to run. And while I may never be Mr. Beast, I will be the best version of myself. So be consistent. Don't give up. Have the mindset that you're gonna learn from it, you're gonna personally develop versus trying to have the milestone or subscriber count, because at the end of the day, once you get there, it's not gonna matter as much as the actual personal development you're going through. Now, business can get pretty lonely, and that's where a co-founder could come into place. Now, before I get into this, I'm just gonna put a massive disclaimer. 99% of people should not get a co-founder. The reason I say that is it's like a marriage. Most marriages end in divorce, and then the ones that are actually in a marriage, I would say probably 30% of those are not happy. Now, that doesn't mean I'm pessimistic towards marriage, right? I'm not against it. I'll probably get married one day. It means that you gotta take it very, very seriously. A lot of people will get into some type of partnership and they just do it because they're buddies. The only way you wanna get a co-founder is if they have a skill that you don't have. So for example, when I started building my tech companies, I could go learn coding or I could hire someone who knew coding. It just makes sense. I hire someone who has that skill because I need to build a team. Yes, it's a little bit harder because I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to talk in code. I don't know if they're doing stuff correctly or incorrectly, etc. But that was something I needed. When I was building my online fitness company and my businesses, there was nothing I didn't know. I didn't need a co-founder, right? So if you're gonna bring on a co-founder, make sure that they actually bring something to the table that you don't have. Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense. You also wanna make sure they have the same values and moral code. Most relationships that end badly, whether it could be business or personal, is because you don't have the same values. So if one person values hard work and the other person values, freedom of time or spending a lot of time on vacation, that's gonna be a bad fit. If one person, is super into fitness and one isn't, that's usually a bad fit. You guys don't think this stuff matters. It matters a lot because if you don't value the same things, you don't think in the same way, and that's where the rubber hits the road. Now, again, if they have a separate skill, right? If they're good at operations and you're good at sales, right? Or they're good at fulfillment and you're gonna do sales, or they're gonna code and you're gonna push the marketing, whatever. That's different, right? That will work. But a lot of times if they don't think the same way in terms of values, it still won't. So you wanna make sure that they have the same morals and values as close as possible, because if they just don't see the world the same way you see it, and when the rubber hits the road and things get tough, that's where people will go different directions. Now, in terms of finding this person, I would do one of two things. Either first thing is reach out to your network and referrals. Like try to find someone who knows this person personally so they can vouch for their character, their integrity, for their skill set, etc. To me, it's a massive thing to sign over half your company to someone and then, have no idea who they really are and just, don't know them from a long period of time. I would treat it the same way you would treat a marriage. You don't go straight into a marriage. I mean, I guess some people do, but unless it's an arranged marriage, I don't think that's a great idea. You want to make sure that you take your time with it. So try to look for someone in your network or referrals. And if you can't do that, then you can post about it, right? Post that you're looking for it. And over time, the right people will come to you. But 99% of people, they don't need a co-founder. A lot of people get a co-founder because they're lonely or they're scared or they don't have the skill set, and trying to avoid the pain you have to go through to get to where you want to go is not going to get you there faster by getting a co-founder. That becomes a crutch. Like you want someone who's driving with you and is a teammate, not someone who you're hoping is going to grow the business in spite of you, or vice versa. That's just not a great way to do it. And remember, guys, if you're going really hard in one direction and the other person is not, it's gonna get you into resentment. Now, the most important thing you can possibly learn in a business is obviously how to sell. The reason I was able to make millions and millions of dollars is I got very good at persuasion and selling. So the first thing is you wanna make sure you sell what we call the sizzle, not the steak. You wanna sell the destination. You wanna sell the outcome. You don't wanna be talking about the actual thing they get. People don't care what they get, right? They just care what it's going to do for them. So for example, in this type of scenario, if I wanted to have teeth whitener, I don't really care if I have to, put on some type of, brace device, or I put on this little, light over my teeth. I don't really give a shit as long as my teeth get whiter. It's the same thing in business. People don't care what you're giving them. They just want to get the actual outcome. You also want to make sure that you understand your customer. This is the most important thing with selling. The more you understand your customer, the better it is that you can sell them, because you understand their pains, their fears, their desires, what they want. So first part of that would be, do they need you, right? Do they actually need what you're selling? Rookies sell to people who don't need what they want. When I did door-to-door sales, I thought, I just wasn't that good at sales. Comes to find out, I was pretty good at sales. They just didn't want what I was selling. That's the hardest person to sell to. If they actually need you and they actually want what you're selling, guess what? Way freaking easier to sell. So if you can actually learn how to get leads and qualify and prospect, professionals only sell to people who are interested. Why? Because it's more efficient and they can make more money. Rookies sell to people who are not interested. It's much harder and they're not gonna make as much money because by nature, it's inefficient. You also wanna make sure that they actually like you. People buy from people that they like. If they don't like you or they feel you have an attitude or you're not actually trying to help them or you're not funny or charismatic, all those words, they're not gonna buy from you. So make sure that you're likable and you need to adjust based on their personality. If you have a lamb, lambs would be nurses or teachers, be of a softer tone. Hey, Mrs. Smith, how are you doing? If it is a owl, owls are very intellectual. Talk about a lot of the features and benefits, like bring up big words and the gadgets. If it's a bull, and they're super aggressive, give them a lot of compliments. Like, yeah, man, you don't really need this thing, but like it would help your business, but like you're killing it, but this, you don't need it, but you just want to give them a lot of compliments and admiration. And then you have a tiger. Tigers are people who are kind of keeping up with the Joneses. So it's like, hey, everyone else is using this. You don't have to, but like literally everyone else is using this. It's kind of the cool thing on the block. And they just want to kind of follow the crowd. So you want to make sure that you get people to like them, and you do that by understanding personality types and then catering to those personality types. Another thing that helped me a ton in sales and will help you is just try to help without expecting anything in return. Obviously, we're all working to make money to a degree. We're not just trying to work for free. We're all trying to at least make money because we're putting time and energy into what we do. But if you try to help without expecting anything in return, people will feel that it's different and they'll know that you're genuinely coming from a good place, and people want to pay people. They feel like they're just trying to help. In addition to that, make sure you think long term and then just be yourself. Don't ever make a decision that's gonna work in the short term but hurt you in the long term. The long term is your reputation. And I feel like I've done a pretty good job with my reputation, but there are definitely decisions I could go back and say, I probably should have made that decision, or maybe I could have handled it differently to have a better reputation with that person, because over time, guys, people talk, right? And so it depends on what, not everyone's gonna like you, but you wanna have a majority of people that say good things about you when your name comes up, because that is your reputation. Your reputation is what people say when you're not around. And so if you treat people kindly and you do the right thing, more times than not, people will say good things to you. And then just finally be yourself. Don't try to be anyone else. Don't try to do something, because you saw someone else do it. People like unique people, right? And so if you can just be true to yourself and your personality and what you want in life, you're gonna get the most out of that, and more people will like you for it. Now, sales is great, but without marketing, sales is useless. In terms of understanding marketing or learning how to market, you need to first understand who your customer is. That's super important, because not understanding who your customer is makes it really difficult to market. Once you know who they are and you know the pains and fears they have, all your marketing should surround yourself around talking about those fears and then coming up with the solutions. That's when people click, that's when interest happens, and that's when they start to buy. Now, a mistake people will make is in marketing, they only think about the first click. So they're thinking about content or an ad, and they think the better the content and the better the ad, the more sales they'll make. In fact, I found that to be not true. 80 to 90% of my revenue is actually all predicated on the follow-ups. So after the first click or after the first view. So the emails, the social media, the texts, retargeting ads, in-person events, live webinars, podcasts, all that stuff. A lot of people need 7+ touch points to close. What people don't count is all those things as touch points. So if they get a text and an email, that's 2 touch points. If they have an in-person event, that's a touch point. If they come to my Facebook group, that's a touch point. If they have a phone call, that's a touch point. It's usually 7 or more touch points, but people don't usually think of it that way, right? So the key thing for me is I usually don't expect someone to click an ad and immediately buy, but they're gonna get those 7 touch points. So the faster I can push someone through those touch points, faster they're gonna buy. You wanna make sure you have really good systems and really good follow-up processes. That is what usually makes the biggest difference in business. And then finally, make sure you just have fun. Marketing should be fun. When you are building your company and you're trying to do things, if you're not having fun, it's gonna be hard to stick with it. So do things that feel fun and feel unique and feel enticing and people will laugh at, or they'll think, that's interesting. The key thing in marketing is we're trying to drive curiosity. If you think outside the box, that's where that will happen, and then good things will happen in your business and your business will start to grow. Now, a question I get asked all the time is, Tanner, how do I network? And I think a lot of people think about this incorrectly, because they think that by going to a lot of events and meeting people, that's gonna somehow grow their business. I really don't believe that at all. The thing that I saw is the people that I want to network with actually created something and built something for themselves first. So Gary Vee, nobody knew who he was, started building companies, and then people found out about him. Alex Hormozi, similar trajectory. Han Bilyeu from Impact Theory. There's multiple scenarios like that. So for me, instead of going to events and wasting my time and going around for hours and getting people's contacts where they really hardly ever contact you or they're trying to sell you something, like become someone that people want to network with. If by default, if you become successful, people will want to get to know you. Opportunities will come your way. People will start DMing you. They'll be reaching out to you. They'll try to get your number. They'll have other people try to reach out to you on their behalf. They'll ask you on podcasts. That's how it works. If you want to actually network, become someone worthy of knowing, and that is how you'll build your Rolodex. I don't meet people because I go to these events. I meet people because they see what I'm doing and they might have a similar interest, or they're in a separate field. So they might be a great content creator, but they need help with their business and they've seen my business success, or vice versa. And that's how you actually start to meet people. Don't waste your time going to events. Just build yourself and become someone worthy and knowing, and that's how you're gonna build your network. Now, if you've ever seen the show Shark Tank, every single business owner is going on there to get an investor. My first piece of advice with this on how to get one is don't get one. 99% of people do not need an investor. They're just lazy, or they don't know how to get that initial cash flow. Giving your company away to someone else for cash is not the best idea, in my opinion, because you're putting all this effort and energy into growing something and then immediately giving away equity. If you just learn how to price properly and get customers, more times than not, you don't actually need an investor. That's not going to be a band-aid for your problem. Now, if you're selling something low ticket and you have proof of concept and you made a lot of sales and you're trying to grow faster, that's one thing. But most people, I don't think they should get one. Now, if you decide to go against that advice and you still want to get one, you could start with your family and friends. That'd be the first thing, because they know you, who you are, they know your personality. Jeff Bezos got, I think it was a $300,000 loan from his parents. I would start there. Then after that, consider the people you want to work with you. So when people think about investors, sometimes they're only thinking about the actual money. Also think about who you want to advise you. So if you can get a strategic investor who also can be a board advisor or something of that nature, that to me is a lot better than just getting the actual money. After that, it can be team members. Some team members will want to actually buy pieces of equity from the company or take over the company if you decide to sell. After that, I would go to angel investors. Angel investors are going to be harder to find, right? Like that's pretty much their entire game. They just go around and invest in a lot of companies. Usually it's earlier startups, right? So it's more risk, more reward, but that would be the next one. And then finally, you could go into venture capital. Now, venture capital usually is going to do a little bit later in the startup phase. So angel investors are usually at the very beginning. Venture capital is usually going to get someone who's a little bit later in the phase of that. But those will be all your options for how to actually get investors. And then I would say a key thing is make sure that they feel FOMO. When you're presenting to these investors, make sure that they get the feeling that this is going to be something big. They don't want to miss out. If they're not going to do it, someone else will. And then also show them the benefit, because ultimately they're not going to give you money if they don't see that they're going to get a return or a benefit. So you want to make sure that it's very clear when they invest that you show them this is the projections, this is what we've done already, this is the benefit you're going to get. Because if they don't buy that or believe that, they're not going to invest with you. Now, with the rise of the internet and social media, there's a lot of ways to get a sponsor. So I want to dive into that on how you can get one. The first way being it could be a value return, meaning that you give them something in return for them sponsoring you. So maybe it's exchange of services where, let's say you have a protein bar company and this person is trying to build their business, but you know how to run ads. So in return for them sponsoring you, you would run their ads or something like that, where some type of equal value exchange. Another thing could just be it's emotional, right? So it's tied to something emotional. So there's actually an organization that I've given money to in charity. The operation, they actually help with sex trafficking. I think it's Underground Railroad Operation. I'm going to butcher that, but that would be an emotional sale where you could get people to sponsor you because they are tied to what your company does, right? So it's a more emotional part. They're not doing it because they necessarily want to get money out of it or something in return, but because they have an emotional attachment to what you do. And then you can also do what I call brand value. So brand value is where you align what you're doing with that brand. So, you know, for a time it was like Balenciaga worked with Kim Kardashian, right? So she wears a lot of, you know, trending clothing, Balenciaga. You have McDonald's with the Olympics, although I don't think that necessarily goes together. That was a branding value. You'll see a lot of gym companies and clothing companies with fitness influencers, right? So if it's a gym brand, they'll work with a fitness influencer. So making sure that what you offer, if you're, let's say, a fitness athlete and then you work with some type of gym brand, that would make sense. Those would be the three types of ways that I would recommend you get a sponsor. Now, part of getting a sponsor is learning how to build a brand. Brand to me is where you get better return or ROAS on everything you do. So better CTR, lower cost per lead, lower cost of acquisition of customers, because when people see you, they relate you with an idea, with a thought. Now, to build a brand, I think the easiest way to do it is you become someone worth knowing. Not even that, I think you actually sell a company. Most of my friends that I've seen that have really grown big brands, they sold a company. And I think there's something about selling a company that just makes the average human being think they're legit. There's a lot of people who will say, I've made this much money, I made this much in sales, but there's always that thought in the back of their head, did they actually really do it? Or they're just like, yeah, but whatever. But when you sell a company, whether it's 50% or 100% or 75%, that seems to be the thing that a lot of people respect. So the first thing about building a brand is just become someone worth knowing. If you do big shit, you'll build a brand. That is why you would actually have a brand, right? Because if you're an average person, you're not gonna have a brand. Just do something worth knowing, being known for, and in business, that would be actually probably selling a company or making a ton of money or getting huge on a social media platform. There's gotta be something you're doing that is better than average to actually build a brand. The next part of that is then making sure you stand for certain values, right? So you want your brand to align with certain values. So if you're a family man, you wanna post stuff about being with your family. If you like traveling, have that part of your brand. If you're into fitness, make that part of your brand. Like, people want to see what you're about, and the people who are going to align with your brand will have similar values. Now, you also have two types of ways you can actually build a brand. You could do what's called leadership values, or you could use another person. So with Nike, they're pretty much using other people to build their brand. They're using athletes. With The Rock, he's using himself. So he's the actual leader, right? He's using the leadership model. Now, for most people, I would say using the leadership model will be easier unless you're starting some type of, maybe it's a clothing brand or it's a protein bar or whatever. But especially if you're a content creator, I usually feel using the leadership brand is going to be better because you are the brand, right? You are the content creator. You are the face of it. So you got to also make sure you decide, do you want to use someone else to build your brand or other people, or do you want to use yourself? There's pros and cons to both. The downside of you being the brand is that if you ever try to sell your company, usually there's going to be some type of exit clause or you're going to have to stay on for X amount of years. But if you use other people, it's usually a clean exit because you are not attached to the brand and you can get out a lot faster. There's no wrong or right way to do things. I think most people, when they buy a business, they want to make sure that that person is not heavily attached to the brand, because if they are, it makes it really hard for that person to step out, and therefore it makes the sell value go down. And then last but not least, learn to say no. That is a big word I've had to learn as I've made more money, because as you make more money, you get more opportunities, more people will ask you stuff, there will be more things you could do. And so staying focused and learning what to say yes to and what to say no to is key in building a long-term brand and building a big business. Now, while building a brand is important, you can only go as far as your team. So learning how to hire, how to grow, how to build a team is extremely crucial for long-term success. Now, attracting top talent. I didn't know this in the beginning, but if you want to attract top talent, you need to have a bigger mission for the company. The reason Elon Musk gets the top talent in the world is he has the biggest ideas, the biggest mission. So the bigger the problem is that you want to solve, the more people are going to get behind it. That's why if you have a smaller company, or maybe you have like a cleaning company, or whenever you go to restaurants, right? Like you see 18-year-old servers, or you go to McDonald's, you see a 20-year-old. The reason is it's just not that big of an idea. It's not that novel of a concept. It's not that exciting. So not a lot of people want to do that job, not only because it doesn't pay a lot, but because it can't pay a lot because it's not a big idea. Tesla and building rockets with SpaceX and all that type of stuff is a massive idea. So it takes a lot of money, which means it's going to attract top talent because top talent wants a lot of money. So having a big purpose for your company and a big mission is one of the easiest ways to attract top talent, because their dreams have to fit within your dream of the company. And if your company is really small and has a small idea, you're not gonna be able to attract that top talent. You wanna make sure you also hire for experience, not potential. This is a big mistake I made. So in the beginning of a business, when you're trying to save as much as you can on payroll, it makes sense that you are hiring the cheapest person possible. But the problem with that is you're hiring on potential, not on experience. And so you end up spending a lot of time in quote unquote what I call babysitting to get a person up to a very average performance level, when instead you could just hire someone who has prior experience who's already at a high performance level. So the way I would explain it to my team or my HR director is, I want a 7 that we can get to a 10. I don't want a 3 and try to get them to a 7, because the 3 is gonna take twice as much work and they're still only gonna be quote unquote average. And the way you get around that is you make sure that you hire for experience, you're not hiring on potential. Now, if you're in the beginning of your business, I understand you might have to hire cheaper or someone who doesn't have that experience, but as your business starts to make money, I'm telling you, paying more for less people is always a better decision than paying less for for more people. Now, a way you want to make sure you do this in terms of hiring is have a proper application with the right vetting questions. So for example, if I'm hiring a business consultant for my consulting company, right, they're going to actually be an account manager working with clients. What are things that they would need to know? Well, they would need to know a lot about offers. They would need to know about hiring. They need to know sales. They would need to know marketing. They would need to know how to run ads. They would need to know how to do fulfillment. So I want to ask questions on the application that will flush that out without them saying yes or no. Yes or no questions is not a great way to know what someone actually knows, because when you say, do you know ads? They're going to say yes. Do you know sales? They're not going to say no because they know what you want them to say. So instead, a great question I'll ask is, tell me the past jobs you've had and what a typical day looked like. And then based on that, I can actually see what skill sets they have based on what they used to do at their previous jobs. And that is a better indicator of what they actually know versus yes or no questions. Now, another part of building a great team is making sure that your incentives align. Depending on the size of your business and where it's going, one of the ways you could do that is by giving equity. Now, most people, what I would recommend you do is give phantom equity. Phantom equity means they get this percentage of the company, but if they ever leave, they have to give the equity back. Now, more experienced individuals, or if they've had equity before, they may not take that deal, but you have to remember, if you are new to the business game and you just immediately start giving equity, the issue could be not only did you give a wrong percentage, because that is also a key part in giving equity. You don't want to give, 20% when it should have been 10% or 5%. But the other part is that you might give it to someone and then they leave. I actually have horror stories. I won't tell you what entrepreneur it was, but they've built $1 billion company and they multiple times had to buy people out for millions and millions and millions of dollars. One of them was $20 million. I'll just tell you, it's a tech company. I'll just leave it at that. But it's a tech company valued at $1 billion, and they had to buy out a C-suite executive for $20 million because that person stopped coming to work and was getting checks every single month. And that to me is not right. But they got themselves in that situation because they gave them equity. So I'm not saying not to give equity, but you have to be very, 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 very careful where you do give equity, because at the end of the day, when you give away that equity, you cannot get it back. And it's very hard unless you want to go down a very long legal route. In addition, make sure you have a proper destination. Make sure that they see the destination of like where you're starting and where you're trying to go, so they're excited about it. If you don't really know where the company is going, they're not going to get excited about it because you don't know where it's going. So how could they possibly know where it's going to go? And the last two things you want to make sure that you have in place is, one, systems. So it's easy for the company to run. When I was early in my career, I was doing about $300,000 a month running my entire company off Google Sheets that were all over the place. It was an absolute shit show. Once I brought someone in who understood operations, we consolidated it and made it into a project management software. So it was a lot easier to run the business. But you want to make sure you have systems. And then you want to make sure the company's always growing. You're going to have high level talent leave if it gets stagnant, because as it's stagnant, they can't grow because they can only grow to the place or the level of the company. And so you want to make sure that you have high level people in the business so the business is always growing, so that they constantly want to evolve and stay in the company. Now, moving on to my favorite part of building a business, how to fire someone. Okay, I'm just kidding, but this is a part of business. You have to actually be okay with it. You have to be good with confrontation. CEOs who are not good at confrontation actually will ruin their businesses, because they will bring people into the business that are not a fit, and then they actually never fire them. So a rule that I go by is what you could call the 7 or 8 rule. Okay? And these are the people that are actually going to hurt the business the most, because usually they're just good enough to not get fired, but they're not an A player, or they're not a 10 level player. The reason it hurts the business is because ultimately the business will only grow to the level of your employees. So if you have everyone who's in the business who's just an average employee, and they never actually are proactive or creative, or they don't bring new ideas to the table, then the business really never grows, because all they do is do, right? They're just doers. They're not actually creators. And so the thing that I look for is, obviously, if you get a 1, a 2, or 3, they have to immediately go. But if you have a 7 or an 8, you want to try to get them to a 10, or you want to just fire them and give them a new job. And one thing I actually do is, if someone has been in my company, they do something they're not supposed to do, I won't get them a new job, because obviously I can't give them a letter of recommendation. But if I have someone who's done a good job, they've done everything I've asked, they work hard, they just don't have that extra oomph that I'm looking for, and I want to replace them, I'll actually help them find a new job. And that's actually, I think, left a good taste in a lot of people's mouth who's actually worked with me, because ultimately they know I'm trying to do what's best for them, and I want to put them in a place where they're excited. And maybe it's because they're in the wrong company. Maybe they're not excited because they don't want to be in this type of company and they need something else. But ultimately, you want to get as many A players in your company, because your company will stop growing at the level of your team. And so having a top level team is super, super important. And then the only advice I would tell you in terms of hiring is do it over Zoom. Don't ever do it over text. You want to do it over Zoom. You want to be professional. I usually will just get on and say, hey, I got some bad news, but here's kind of the situation. We're going to be moving on. We'll help you, get another spot, whatever. But I think it's always a common courtesy and professional courtesy to do it over Zoom so that they leave with a good taste of their mouth. Now, if your business isn't growing, one of the things I would always advise you to do is to get a mentor or coach. So how can you actually do that? The first way is just pay for it. Way too many people are looking for free shit. There's a million free things on the internet, but the problem is you don't know which is correct information and which is incorrect information. So one of the fastest ways to actually grow is to just pay a mentor. Find the person who's doing what you want to do or is in the position you want to be in and simply pay them for it. Over the last 6 years, I've spent about $3 million on different coaches, consultants, agencies, programs, courses, you name it, I've done it. And the reason for that is I want to learn quickly and have speed. And a lot of times people say, oh, but you could just learn that on YouTube for free, or oh, there's a free course you could take here. The problem is it's not in a structured and concise place. So when you go into programs or you work with someone, they have everything structured on exactly what to focus on and what not to focus on, and you can move much faster. We only have about 80 years to live, right? Give or take. I think it's like 75 or something like that. So to me, I would rather always pay money because I can always get more versus spending my time because time is limited. You can go the free route, but I'm telling you, you'll move a lot faster if you just pay for it. My first 2 years of business going the free route, I made $2,000. The last 6 years of business, I've done 100 million plus, and that started when I started paying for mentorship. Now, how to decide who to hire? I would start with researching what matters to that person, right? What do they value? What do you see them post on their social media? Does it align with what you align with? I will say that you don't always have to agree with everything they do. So if I'm trying to build a big business and someone's really good at business, but maybe like they have a terrible personal life, I don't necessarily have to take everything from that person and then say, oh, I can't listen to his business advice because he has a terrible personal life. But I get why some people think that. So sure, if he's more well-rounded around the areas you want to be in, great. But the key thing is, are they good at the thing you're trying to get good at? I take different, relationship advice from different people, then I take business advice, then I take music advice, then I take workout advice, etc. It doesn't make sense to try to find a person that's good at literally everything. That doesn't really exist. There's different levels of good, and a 10 over here is not going to be a 10 over here. But the more you align with their values, the better the situation will probably go. Also define what you mean when you say someone will be your mentor. So unless you've paid for it, define what that means, right? Like, is it a call a week? Is it a call a day? Do you get texting access? Do you just show up at their house? Will they give you tips every once in a while? Make sure you're on the same page, because again, this is a two-way relationship. If they don't know that you're your mentor and you think they are, or they think they should only give you a little piece of advice and you're expecting more, that's never going to go well. So make sure that you define what you're actually going to get. I'd also say a key thing you could do as well is change the word mentor to advisor. I think it sounds better. If you're trying to find a mentor, there's two ways that you can really do it. One would be connecting to people who know them, so referrals, right? So finding someone who is friends or knows the person that you're trying to be a mentor with and maybe getting an invitation that way or getting connected that way. Or even better ways, if you don't know anyone or it's a really far stretch, give value to the person you want to mentor you. So something that's interesting to me is I'll get people who DM me all the time. And they say, hey Tanner, can I be a setter for you? Or can I be a closer for you? Or hey, can I be a video editor for you? But that doesn't really bring me any value because I already have a sales team, I already have editors, and then I have to go and I have to vet them and I have to look through their stuff and then I have to pay them money. What would be better is if someone wanted to actually edit my videos is send me good edited videos, and if they're pretty good, there's a high chance I'll reach out and then put them on payroll. But just asking me, hey, can I send you stuff, doesn't really bring me any value because you've taken time out of my day. Now I'm distracted. Now I have to look at your stuff. So just start giving value to that person without expecting anything in return. And I promise you, if you do it long enough and it's actually good, that's the key thing. It actually has to be good. They will notice you and they'll think, wow, this person is putting so much time and energy to impress me and to help me. Maybe I should give them something in return. The law of reciprocity is a real thing. If you help other people without expecting anything in return and you keep doing it and it's good, right? It has to be good, right? It can't just be a shit sandwich. But if it's good, you will get that back at some point. And then finally, if everything comes to fruition, everything's worked out perfectly, you get to do what most of us want to do, is sell the business. Now, I have not actually sold a business yet. I got close to doing it. I worked on it. It's actually a very rigorous process. The issue I ran into is I stepped out a little too soon. I didn't put the right pieces in place. But the best way to sell a company is just make it so good you don't want to sell it, which makes sense because if you want to sell a company and it's super valuable and it's a great business and you don't actually want to sell it, then that makes it more valuable where more people will actually want to buy it. So build the company in a way where you get it to a point where it makes a lot of money, it's easy to run, it's super efficient, you get great referrals, all those types of things, so that when you go to sell it, you don't even want to sell it unless it's a really, really, really good offer. Now, different ways you could sell a company. One could be a partnership, right? So if you have a partner, they could actually buy the company from you. Another one is you work with an agency or a broker to sell. So friends I've had that have actually sold their companies, they worked with what you could consider a broker, and they essentially would put it out to the market and they get a small percentage, whether it's, I think it's like 1 to 3% or something like that of the total sale, and they could sell it to you that way. You could also do a merger. So you can merge your company with someone else. Sometimes companies will do that if they have a lot of contacts or data or something like that. Or finally, you could actually have your team buy it from you. So if you have a pretty pretty good business and you want out, and you have people who are working inside your company, you could give them equity and they could actually have the management buy into it. So this is everything you need to build a business in 2025. If you want to see how I made $111 million selling coaching, click here.